Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today is the professor himself, Mr. James Eng. James, how are you?
I'm doing good, Paul. Thanks for having me.
What is coming up in the Old Capital world these days, getting closer to September?
Yeah, the once-a-year conference is happening September 23rd, 24th. So make sure that's on your calendar here in Dallas. We just had, I want to call it a happy hour / get together this past week. So that was good. We had probably close to 100 people over here in Dallas. So just building out some of what is the future community that we're working on here at Old Capital.
So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today, James, is the Old Capital Accelerator Program. And I want to kind of go in a little bit more detail. We've had just out of the box. Again, this is a white piece of paper for us that we have a pen or a pencil, and we're trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do, because we're going to try to build a community, you need a lot of effort. And one of the things that we know is that I've done this for this is my 40th year of being a banker. And we just saw in the community itself of apartment investors that people had some major challenges. And being bankers, I think we're fairly conservative or just more knowledgeable, just because we've been doing it for such a long period of time. We've been on the cutting edge of apartment investing, lending, all the vendors that go along with it, the attorneys. I mean, we're in the eye of the storm. And so we see a lot of things that are going on that we felt that would benefit you if you were thinking about getting into apartment investing. And we thought it was the right time to do it. Again, we're still bankers, by the way. We're not just getting into just teaching, but we just think it's a great opportunity to learn from somebody that's in our group that's been doing it for such a long period of time, that you could use our resources and kind of figure out from there. So today, what I really wanted to do is kind of ask a series of questions, and then maybe James and myself kind of answer, because we've had, just out of this initial conversation, we've had a lot of people sign up for this to be part of the Old Capital Accelerator community. Again, it is something that if you've read books or watched podcasts or YouTube videos and you've consumed a lot of this stuff, if you're a serious apartment investor, I think these are some of the things I think you should be asking to kind of figure out if you are right to join and be part of the Old Capital Accelerator Program. So I'm going to ask James a couple questions, and we'll kind of go through it. James, before I start asking all these questions, anything more you want to throw out?
You know, a lot of people in this business, they are very independent, right? So, you know, being part of a community, I think, adds a certain level of knowledge that you just can't get. Like, a lot of people, they might have a relationship with a broker, they might have a relationship with their property manager, but in essence, they're on an island. This is really setting it up so that you're connected with other apartment investors who are looking at similar challenges and helping each other be better through it. So I think it's something that every apartment investor should consider.
And we're going to tell you a lot of things of what it is, and then we're also going to tell you a lot of things that it's not. So we want to be full transparent just because we think it's the right thing to do. So let's kind of talk a little bit. As we said, you've probably read the books, watched a bunch of YouTube videos, or listened to the Old Capital podcast or other podcasts that you've already consumed, but maybe you have not gone and executed to buy an apartment building. So if you spent tens of hours or hundreds of hours, James, how does this program help you actually close a deal?
I mean, it definitely puts some structure around a couple things. One is sort of learning in a group together, right? We see this every bus tour that we do, right? So our bus tours start out in the mornings in the classroom. And, you know, when you're listening to one person on a podcast or even a webinar, it's really one way. But then all of a sudden, when you flip it and you say, hey, teach this concept to somebody else, all of a sudden you see the thinking caps or come on. Or even when we play the LOI game and you have to compete versus other people, all of a sudden that thinking cap comes on. So this, I want to think of this as more like a cohort going together. I'm not going to say going to war, but at the beginning, let's say in August, we're going to have a fall cohort and we're going to have essentially 4 weeks of classes, right? So we're going to do acquisitions, dispositions, capital raising, asset management, property management, and really dig into sort of the full cycle of a deal. And so that's really going to set the foundation. And then from there, have monthly case studies and then quarterly bus tours. So that to me is sort of the structure around it. And then those times we're going to either have a way to connect with everybody else who's in your cohort. So that might be email, that might be a separate chat group, something that's set up so that when you have a question, because this is the reality is like we can't anticipate every question that's going to come up, right? And you're going to need answers to questions almost in real time. And so the same way that we're part of some groups where if somebody has a lending question, then someone can chime in and answer that question quite quickly. That's really what we're going to do is you're going to have this structure of monthly case studies, quarterly bus tours, but then in between is where that connection is going to happen between these investors.
And we'll also bring in experts in what they do, whether it is an SEC attorney, maybe a tile attorney, maybe a 1031 attorney, maybe a breakdown from somebody that is a general partner that kind of wants you to understand some of the challenges out there. So we want to make sure that you go in with full eyes open really about what's going on and how these deals are structured. Maybe talk with a general contractor that only looks at multifamily properties and tells you his opinion, whether you need to replace the lighting, the electrical system, the roofing system. So we're going to go in more detail than pretty much anybody else is going to do. We're going to try to do that maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks and have a kind of a community that listens to this one speaker that they're an expert on, that you want to be part of that group. So another question, James, is are you working on real apartment deals or just hypothetical case studies?
No, I mean, everything that you're going to see is live and real. So I think it's a combination of seeing deals that recently closed and were financed by us. I think that's one. So where you get to maybe step onto the property and see what's happened over the last 12 to 24 months to really get a feel for how these deals are operating. And then also going and seeing deals that are for sale, right? So almost everybody joining this accelerator, they want to invest as a limited partner. They want to be a GP on a deal. And so we're going to go look at live deals.
And not just the ones that maybe that we have financed, but this is our playground. And so we have the ball. So we typically do a lot of multifamily financing transactions. And so we know all the players out there. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we've done the financing, but we know somebody that owns the property that's going to invite you onto the property with us. And then they'll stand there and they'll tell you the story where you can, as I've said many times in the bus tours, you can smell what a Class C property is all about. James, you said something about the LOI game, and I think that's fun. That's important to do. Are you going to walk through the preparing of the LOI and negotiate the terms and understanding what the sellers expect? Tell us a little bit more about the LOI game.
Yeah, I think in those foundational classes in terms of acquisitions, really going through what terms are key in an LOI and how those have changed, right? So in 21, your earnest money might have been $500,000 to $1 million, and it was hard day one, and now it's quite different, right? So if they can get any money on an LOI right now, hard day one, the seller wants to take it. So I think adjusting, and I think knowing the structure up front is key, and then adjusting as the market changes, I think is the biggest thing. So I think understanding where other people are, and we see this, right? So we see where people are making offers. We're seeing what deals are getting accepted and what deals go under contract. That's the part of this program that I think is that will change over time. Like your foundational stuff, you're going to learn the structure of how all these things work. But then as you go through your analysis and over the months, as you submit more and more LOIs, then you're going to get better and better at this, and you're going to be more in tune with the market.
James, again, who's teaching this program? Did we go out and hire somebody that maybe book smart but never has done a deal? Tell me who's doing the active, working with the active apartment owners, lenders, the operators that are closing deals today, professional educators. Tell us who's teaching this.
You're listening to the guys who will be teaching it. So we'll be there in the classes. We'll be there at the monthly case studies and the bus tours. And, I think bringing in, general partners that we work with and different, experts in various things to teach these things. But you'll be hearing from us 90% of the time.
Are we going to give them, direct feedback on underwriting and any investment decisions?
If you tell two people to underwrite a deal, or you tell Claude, or you tell ChatGPT to underwrite a deal, you won't get the same answer twice, right? And so we will not be there with a rubber stamp saying, yes, this is the deal. No, this is not the deal. We're going to challenge your assumptions, right? In terms of rent growth, in terms of occupancy, expenses, those items. We will give you feedback on how a lender is going to underwrite it, but ultimately it's going to be your decision if you want to invest in this deal or not, whether it's LP or GP.
Yeah, lender is the biggest decision person in this arrangement. The lender is the guy who brings in 75, 80%. And so we kind of represent the lender. So, well, what this is not is that you're not going to say, well, Paul and James or anybody at Old Capital has said that they're thumbs up and they're telling us yes, that they're telling us to do this deal. You'll never hear that from us. We're the people that are going to tell you the truth about what's going on. Think of it in terms of your cousin comes in 3 or 4 times at night, has been drinking for those 3 or 4 days. That person may have a problem with alcohol. We're the guys that are going to stand up and say, hey, listen, this guy needs some help. So we're going to try to be truthful, helpful, but we're not going to help you be decision makers. And we don't want you to give us the saying that Paul and James and the Old Capital crew had anything to do with putting a stamp of approval on these deals. So that's something that we're not.
Yeah, that's really the value of the community, right? So if you go talk to other GPs and you say, hey, here's my underwriting on the deal. I'm paying $10 million for this deal. Do you want to help me raise money for this deal? Or do you want to invest in this deal? And the feedback they give you is, nope, that's too aggressive, or that's not you're not underwriting this correctly. There's your feedback.
Yeah.
Right. If you start getting feedback from other LPs and other GPs that, this is not going to work for X and Y, that's the feedback you're wanting.
So what happens, James, if someone finds a deal? Most education stops at underwriting. Well, I learned due diligence, financing, capital raising, and asset management. Tell me a little bit more about where the accelerator stops and starts.
Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff you will learn, at least in theory, through the classes. But once you actually start going through a deal, you're going to have a question a day or a question an hour. And so that's really where, the person who's helping you on the financing will answer those questions. But we're going to set you up with the correct team members that are going to be experts in due diligence in terms of walking the property and giving you a full sort of CapEx scope. And then also on the capital raising side, you're going to have somebody, not only an SEC attorney, but you're going to have other GPs in this community that are going through similar process or have gone through similar processes. And then on the asset management side, that's where we're getting more questions on asset management than any of the previous 3 things. So asset management is a key item that we're helping people through almost every day. So I think it's going to be it's a constant throughout the ownership of the deal.
Yeah, asset management will either make you or break you. So you need to have somebody that's helping you with that. Are you going to help in the Old Capital team, myself and everybody, about how lenders evaluate apartment deals?
Yeah, I mean, that's our day-to-day job, right? So that's what we do every day in terms of how, agencies changing their criteria, what they're looking for at the property level, what they're going to flag as immediate repair. That's what we do every day. So that's what not going to change. I think what is going to change probably consistently is what maybe banks or even debt funds are doing. We're going to let you know, hey, these are your options, and you're going to have to make the decision based on, your how much money you can raise, what you want to do in terms of how new you are and who you're going to have on your team to really qualify for that loan.
Will I learn also how general partners actually structure deals and how debt, equity, preferred equity, or investor returns and ownership structured in today's market?
I mean, I think that's the beauty of it is you have to be competitive in the market, and you have to learn from what other people are doing. If you talk with other people in the accelerator, you're going to start seeing a lot more deals. And so pretty much the first thing I tell any new investor in multifamily is you've got to see more than 2 deals a month, right? You need to see 5 deals a week or 6 deals a week and start looking at how deals are being underwritten and how the debt and equity is being put together. I think that community piece, and I think even when all these social networks started, you really don't know how far it's going to reach. But each person, if they share, if let's say there's 30 people in the first cohort, and all of a sudden each person brings 1 deal to the table in the first meeting, all of a sudden you've got 30 deals that you didn't see before. And so I think your ability to learn from what other community members bring in is key. And you can go a lot deeper too. If one of the accelerator members is a GP and they bought a deal this year or last year, you can go through the debt, the equity, and what it took to raise that money with that person.
So a lot of folks, when they come into it, the newbies in apartment investing, which I get, we all started someplace. But in this one, you're going to be surrounding yourself with active groups, not just folks that are just consuming information. So active investors. And so I think that's going to be the beauty of really what's going on in this. James, are we going to learn a little bit of history of apartment investing, go back, 25 or 30 or 40 years ago? And are we going to be talking a little bit about what's today? Because what's happening today is different from what was happening 3 or 4 years ago. So we're not looking backwards all the time, but we're also trying to look forwards. But the way that we're structuring deals has changed. There's opportunities right now, but I think there's going to be more opportunities in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months. So are we looking at deals with the eye of what's going to happen in the future and how to structure deals?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now what we're trying to do is to start forming the team, right? So start building the relationships where you say, all right, I like, you have, whether it's the experience, the net worth liquidity, the asset management skill set, we're starting to build those teams now. And the report we got this morning, there's 5 more deals that got foreclosed across Texas this past week. So, I mean, the stressed assets are here, right? It's all about the pricing and can you buy it at a price that makes sense? And I think understanding that plus having the right team in place, like you can buy a great deal, but if your team's not in place and you don't have enough liquidity, like we saw a deal in, I think it was 23 that was heavily distressed. And then somebody else came in and bought the deal with a bridge loan. And it was a high interest rate bridge loan. And then guess what? 2 years later or 3 years later, they got foreclosed, right? So just because you're buying distressed deal doesn't mean like you are safe. I think buying not only at the right time in the cycle, but then also having the liquidity and having the team in place, that's what's going to set you up for success.
I mean, how long is this program? We talk a little bit about the first 4 weeks of getting people going. Will I continue to have relationships with instructors, fellow investors? Tell us a little bit about, is it a month? How long is this going to last?
The initial month will be the heaviest, right? So that's when you'll have the once a week classes. But after that, I think it will be more of the monthly case studies and the quarterly bus tours that you'll be on. And from there, you will be connected. Either we haven't figured this fully out, but either through an app or email. We're going to have to try some things out and see, like, I don't know how many apps you have on your phone, but once you go past page 3 on your iPhone, you probably ain't going to log into that app, right? So what I've seen is either text messaging or email is probably better. But the thought is to really move your relationship with, let's say 30 people are in the first cohort. The goal is to move that relationship from somebody you met at the accelerator to somebody you're talking with day in and day out on a deal. That is the goal, right? So if you come into the cohort and after a month, you have 2 to 3 new investors that you can bounce deals off of, can potentially partner with on a deal. Like that is the goal for you guys to go out and invest in a deal. Like our goal is not for you to stick around forever on these deals. So our goal is for you to actually go out and do something with this information.
Yeah, over a period of time of a year plus or so. So is it the program designed for a newbie, a first-time investor or an experienced operator? What would you take?
I think they're going to get different benefits. The first time investors, they're going to learn a ton in that first month in terms of the classes, like just learning the terminology and learning how not to look like a first time investor, right? So how to talk the talk, how to understand how to whether approach brokers or property managers and run these deals. Experienced operators, I think they will learn probably more on the actual bus tours and the monthly case studies because that's how they're sort of staying up to date on what's happening, right? They know what's going on at their property, but they want to see and connect with other investors. I mean, I think that's what we saw at the happy hour last week was that a lot of these people, they've been heads down trying to make sure their deal didn't get foreclosed on. Just to come out and just hear from other operators, hear their challenges and how they can help each other, I think is what the experienced operators will get more out of it.
How much time do you think a person joining the accelerator can expect to commit to for the first couple weeks, for the first couple months? Give me again a breakdown of what you think.
I mean, I think that first month, our kickoff will be in person in August, and from there, it's going to be once a week, probably for a 2-hour session. But you'll probably have homework, right? So we'll send you some stuff beforehand to get prepared, and then so that when you come to class, you're ready to discuss different items. It's all up to you in terms of how much you want to spend on this, but the more time you spend, obviously, the further along you're going to be. And so I would say an hour or two of homework before each session is probably more than sufficient.
We're trying to build a community. There's been communities built in the past and, been around, this syndication model is fairly new to apartment investing. It's only probably been around about 14 years. And as you'll learn when we go through kind of the history of how capital is raised and how it's formed, if you go back to probably pre-2000, is that it used to be three rich people that would buy and build an apartment complex. There wasn't really a syndicator involved that would go out there and break it open till 75 to 100 people to put money into these deals. And so in 2014, 15, it flipped. And now there's 65, 70 people or so in a transaction that have put money into these deals, and the three rich guys or gals are no longer part of it. Now these values have come down so much that we could be going back to the three rich guys or gals to buy these smaller properties just by themselves. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But when you're talking about raising money, we're not going to help you raise the money. That's not what we do. We are trying to build the community so then you can go out and raise the money and walk around because you're knowledgeable with a big pillowcase to figure out how much money you could raise on these deals. And it's all about, like, and trust that you'll put money into their deals or they'll put money into your deals. But tell us, James, a little bit about capital raising and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we're seeing the largest operators take deals out and in the heyday they could raise 30 million, and now they're trying to raise 10,
in a
right?
week.
So
They could raise
so
$30 million in a week. Now they're tasked to find $10 million, and they look to the right, look to the left after they've put $100,000 worth of earnest money up, and nobody's coming to support even a smaller raise. It may take them not a week, it may take them 2-3 months to raise that money. Sorry,
yeah,
I
so we're
stepped on you.
seeing we're seeing buyers sort of limp into deals, I would say. That's one way. And plus sellers being more flexible, right? So the seller is saying, look, if you can hit this price, I got it. Rates are high right now. I got it. Your equity is going to take a while, but I ain't got nobody else. So if you want to take a run at this deal
Yep.
and put up 5,000 bucks, let's go. Right. So you have an opportunity where if you're coming into this business in 21, yes, you could raise the equity, but you probably got outbid. So it's just a different challenge right now. And so I think understanding how to sort of manage your risk right now in these deals and structure your team, right? So if you're brand new, you might need to bring somebody on who has experience in the market that you're investing in, and in order to win the deal, but then also to raise the money.
A lot of people ask, will I be able to build a broker relationship, an investment sales relationship, a realtor relationship? As I've said before, this is a very small community. And again, my playground is North Dallas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio to a certain extent. And so we have the ball. In residential real estate, in an area that is from Denton all the way down to Hillsborough and from Weatherford out to Rockwall, that's a fairly good size area. And there's maybe 50,000 residential realtors. That maybe is the 80-20 rule in that business. In the multifamily investor business, investment sales groups, any idea how many people are selling apartments in that same geographic area? Maybe 20, maybe 25. Not 1,000, but 20 or 25 people. It's a very small community. And we've done business with them for such a long period of time that we know them very well. And as a transfer of credibility, we want you to know them too. So talk a little bit about our current broker relationships out there. Maybe some things that we do, like talk with them on a biweekly basis with Zoom calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think staying on top of the brokers in these markets is key. And I mean, you can definitely call them. They're definitely more accessible now than they were a couple years ago. But I guess what Paul's really trying to talk about is the transfer credibility, right? So we're talking with these guys. We might have, a structured call, but then we're talking with them on every deal they have out, right? Saying why is the seller selling? So we're getting inside information. And typically you can't trade on inside information in the stock market. But in real estate, guess what? Everything's inside information.
That's
And
right.
so really knowing, and this is the line that I was struggling to find on a bus tour, is knowing where the bodies are buried is what Paul likes to say is the secret to figuring out whether or not to do this deal or not. When we talk to brokers, we like to get an understanding of, what the seller actually wants and how you're going to actually win this deal. Yes, you will meet brokers on tours. You will meet them at case studies. You will meet them, when making offers and talking with them. But throughout the process, we've closed a lot of deals with these guys. And so they're leaning on us to sort of vet you up front and get you in position to close these deals.
James, if somebody is not out of North Texas, physically, they're in North Carolina or they're in Florida or they're in Arizona, how does this program work? I know that it's going to be challenging a little bit, but kind of walk through it with me.
I think for people, especially at the beginning, we're not going to try to do a deal in every MSA out there. Our focus will be in the DFW area at the beginning. And the people who are wanting to invest in DFW and they can get here, I think we're not gonna ask you to come in every month, but I think once a quarter, you're gonna have to be willing to come in once a quarter, because that's really when the bus tour will happen, and that's how you're gonna meet other people, right? So you're trying to take sort of an offline relationship to an in-person relationship. So online relationship to an in-person relationship. So we've had about 30 or so folks apply already for the accelerator, and I'm calling every single one of them and asking them what they want to do, what they want to invest in. If you want to invest in Dallas and you're outside of Texas, you just got to be willing to come here. And if you can't do that, there's no way you're going to buy a property. So you've got to at least make the commitment to come to Texas and meet some folks up front.
But I will say, and I'm going to flip the script a little bit on that, is that if you are in North Carolina or Florida or Phoenix or so, the math on apartment investing is the same in those markets versus ours. In our markets, we're going to hold your hand a little bit more, but in those markets, you're going to have to figure out who you can talk to and build those relationships with the investment salespeople. In that, it doesn't make a difference, again, what part of the country is, 3+3 is the same throughout it. And that's kind of how I feel about it. So, but to build a relationship, you've got to be here on not a frequent basis, but a semi frequent basis, and kind of figure out what that's all about. So we're about finishing up here, but there's a couple things I want to make sure that we get out is, again, James, why are we doing this? And like everybody's going to ask is, what does it cost?
That's a great question. I think from our perspective, we've seen groups be put together, and for some reason, every group has its challenges, but we're trying to take the best things out of each group. So, in terms of the community, in terms of there's so many good things that happen when investors are put in the same room. And so that's what we're trying to do is really build the community and give people a place to learn not just from one or two folks, but from 30, 40, 50, 100 folks, right? And everybody that I'm talking to, like if I get on the phone with somebody and they feel like, or it seems like they just want to take, I'm here to learn and then I'm going to just go do my own thing and they're not going to help anybody else, that's probably the wrong person for the accelerator. We want somebody that's, yes, they're going to help, or we're going to help them get educated, but then they are also going to help others when other people in the accelerator have challenges. And so that's what we're really trying to build is a community of apartment investors that not only care about making a ton of money, but then also want to help each other be better investors.
Talk to me about the cost. I mean, how much do you think this is going to cost?
I think it's going to be more than $1,000, but less than 10,000. So we haven't figured out exactly the pricing, but what we're asking people to do is fill out a form. So we'll put a link to the form in the description. And we've had about 35 people fill it out so far and get feedback on exactly what you want. And I think as we scope the structure and everything like that, we'll come up with a price for the program.
What's the first thing that they need to do is just really get on to the Old Capital podcast, fill out the form from the accelerator.
Yeah, there's a form on Old Capital podcast.
When does it start? When does the first cohort start?
The first meeting will be at the end of August here in Dallas. And so we'll do sort of an in-person classroom session for about 3 hours in the morning, and then go get lunch, and then go see some properties in the afternoon, and then basically meet every week up until the conference in September.
If you've been listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos about apartment investing, there are a lot of, say, good operators out there that maybe will do education or something. But I think the big difference to us, to a certain extent, is that we're non-denominational. We're not promoting anybody. We're not telling you to take your money and put it over here, or take your time and put it over there, type of stuff. That's not what we're going to do. So we are a non-denominational group, but we're focused on making sure that you get better at what you do. And you could talk with other groups, but what do they say, James, that if you've been doing in one different field, you've been doing it for 10,000 hours. That makes you an expert. And you pretty much can get 10,000 hours in anything over a period of 5 years, 10 years or so. I think I have 40 or 50, maybe 75,000 hours of doing this, of being a banker and helping folks and seeing what's right and what's wrong. And not everything in an Excel report that you're going to put together when you go through other folks. For you, it's always going to work. But when you want to hear a little bit of reality of what the truth is and what works and what doesn't work, that's where I think you need to have somebody with some experience that has been doing it for more than 10,000 hours, less than 100,000 hours, but more than 10,000 hours. I wish I knew what that exact number was, but take 40 years and divide that out. James, any final words on the Old Capital Accelerator Program?
If you made it this far in the podcast, you're probably interested in the accelerator. So go to oldcapitalpodcast.com, click the accelerator link. There's a form there to fill out to get more information. Then we'll reach out to you and have a quick call with you and just go through it and make sure it's a good fit. And then so far we've had about 35 people apply, and we'll send out more information in July in terms of dates for the fall cohort here starting shortly.
Sounds good. Again, James Zhang, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at oldcapitalpodcast.com to sign up for our weekly email updates. We'll see you next week for another great interview.